there is a placebo component to all of this as well? And does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's placebo effect in everything, but I also think like the power of the mind is a pretty powerful thing. I think if people believe in something, we see it with religion. You see it all the time where if people have faith and they believe, things happen. I am too big a skeptic with this stuff to believe in anything, like to the point where I'm like, okay, I understand, but you have to be able to analyze this with like, okay, this is what I could do before, this is what I could do after, which is more of a functional kind of yardstick, more so than the emotional yardstick of like, yeah, I feel better. Like, what does that mean? And I'm sure you've run into that. You're like, oh, how you feeling? Oh, I feel great. Okay, great. Well, everything looks like shit, so it's like, what's important? Yeah. Like for me, it's like the function is important. Can I do something? But we're constantly, testing ourselves. Like, hey, if I can do X in the gym, what does it look like? Am I able to do more today than I was yesterday? How does that all look? And because we have real metrics for progress, and this is what I could do, this is what I can't, and how this goes, it allows you to see what's working, what's not. Yeah. Like, hey, if I took BPC 157 in my shoulder and I have more range of motion and I healed faster than I did before, then could it be the difference? I don't know. Maybe I was more aggressive in the treatment. Having Keith Barr on the podcast, where he talked about shear and load and compression and all these other different factors, and kind of put a little game plan together. I think that's really helped.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
PNF stretching works. I mean, dude, you did a bunch of PNF on me. That shit works for some reason for me, because I've met people that didn't get an effect from PNF. I get massive effect from PNF stretching. Like on my shoulder, like any resistance, it just fucking knocks it all back.
Yeah, I think you brought up an interesting point about the emotionality component of it, and understanding how you are actually measuring the outcome you're looking for, right? That makes a really, really big difference, because if whatever you don't measure, you have no control against, right? You have no idea to know if you're actually getting better or not, or if it is placebo. But even the placebo effect is fascinating from a research standpoint, because they've shown that it accounts for like 40% of people, emotionally feeling better, and actually improving range of motion or flexibility and everything like that too, because it changes the chemistry in the brain around, and it changes your brain's perception of threat and what's going on. And that's why education is such a key component with all this stuff, because the provider who's delivering you the information matters. Like if you trust and you have confidence in that individual, you're more likely to have a positive outcome. If you think he's full of shit and you're skeptical, that outcome goes down, right? You're more likely to have a negative response to it. So the person who's delivering it, that's their utmost responsibility, and their role is to be able to have you trust them. And I tell people this all the time. I could be the worst PT out there, but my people get better that I work with because they believe in me and make them feel good about it.
So you're the placebo.
I'm the placebo.
Yeah, I'd like connecting both of those points with the PNF stretching. I had when I was coaching at the high school challenge, connecting with the basketball team, because they just wanted like weightlifting machines versus learning how to squat and bench. They weren't immediately good at those things. But then with the PNF, like some iron cross work, going back to some Marie's tricks and tools that utilized PNF
God, I'm
stretching.
so glad we don't do the iron cross anymore.
That then they were like, that really like opened them up, and you saw and felt. And then they eventually came around. It was almost a year before we really got into barbell work with that particular team. But then it was just like I couldn't tell them enough. So then, fuck it, let's show them. And then went to the iron cross because that hurts. And then like plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, manipulating the calf. And then it was good for their team, because like I wasn't doing it on all the kids. It was their teammate that was in charge of like, all right, I'm going to force dorsiflexion in here. You're going to hurt. And then like set them free to really open up the calf, the Achilles, the hip, the hamstring, all that good stuff with an iron cross. And then they got to switch roles. And then it accelerated camaraderie between freshmen. And it was a small enough team where seniors and freshmen were playing together and responsible for each other that, man, was it placebo? But they eventually got more involved in the training, the weightlifting, and nothing to do with peptides, but just a cool placebo plus coach and buy-in.
Yeah, like one comment on that, like that PNF stuff, there's a lot of really cool effects from it. You mentioned a few of them there. One being the physiological effects, like working on the Golgi tendon organs and the muscle spindles in the body through PNF, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Say that 5 times fast. What that does is it creates like a sense of safety and security inside the brain. So when the brain feels more safe and secure, it will open up more range of motion. That's what isometrics are really great at. They also release an opioid response into the brain. So you get a nice little dopamine hit as well, which once again calms everything down and makes you feel good. But you touched on the emotional component about it as well, which is, I think, the most fascinating piece is that you establish buy-in, right? Brett Bartholomew talks about it all the time with his conscious coaching book of establishing buy-in. This is one way that I establish buy-in from a movement perspective. It's like, okay, I'm going to take you through some of this PNF stuff. We're going to put you into these loaded isometric or eccentric ranges. You are going to do it yourself. You don't need me. They're learning that in real time, and then they realize that they can change the way their body moves in an instant. Now, is it going to stick? No, not necessarily, but they establish buy-in in me. They're confident in me. They trust me to help guide them along the way, and then it's also empowering for them to do it themselves and to keep doing it. So it develops this idea of willpower and determination, and they're more likely to take this, what I have to tell them, to heart and actually implement it as well.
Freight train and I'm right on track. I'm